Today's podcast is brought to you by Chikara Wrestle Factory, 4711 Wingate Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where they specialize in lucha libre, porosu, European, British, and German styles, mixed martial arts, and American pro wrestling, all built into the curriculum at the Wrestle Factory, where they strive to create the most well-rounded performers active today. Hey yo, Fro Wrestling Podcast listeners, help us out, click the subscribe button and show your support. Hello everyone, welcome to episode 51 of the Fro Wrestling Podcast. This episode, we've got all kinds of craziness going on, and to let you in on some of that, right after we published our episode last night, all kinds of insane stuff popped up online. I was so frustrated, I wish I could have brought you everything last night in our monumental 50th episode, but that's okay, it's a day later, and we'll get some more stuff out to you. We're going to start this episode off with a sad story, follow up to what we reported last night. Unfortunately, Jim Ross's lovely wife has passed away at the age of 55 due to complications from her accident. We want to send the most heartfelt prayers to the rest of the Ross family. From all of us here at the Fro Wrestling Podcast, nothing but love for the Ross family. For those people who would like to go and give Jim Ross just an earful of your condolences, hit him up on Twitter, JRsBBQ, and just let him know how you feel about the guy. I mean, talk about legendary performers, legendary personalities in the world of professional wrestling. It's always sad when anything like this happens, but Jim Ross is the epitome of the family man, and he's always been such a great voice for wrestling. So send him some love, send him some prayers, everybody, if you get the chance. The big news of the day, the huge news of the day, is the revelation that World Wrestling Entertainment is in negotiations for a potential corporate takeover of Ring of Honor. This has been reported on almost every wrestling news site there is. There was even an article on Yahoo.com, which, take that for what it is, but Yahoo has become more and more of a reputable news source. There are conflicting reports about how long the discussions have been going on. ProWrestlingSheets.com is claiming that the two sides started negotiating in January of 2017, while the Wrestling Observer says that there may have been discussions as early as August of 2016. So, and if you think about it, that's back when the issues with TNA wrestling were still going on. So for some period of time there, whether it's late August, early September, there exists the possibility that Vince McMahon and the WWE were negotiating to potentially purchase the number 2 and number 3 promotions found in the United States, Ring of Honor and TNA. I can't imagine what would have happened if he would have been able to pull those both off. For Anthem, I'm sure they're thrilled because now they own the intellectual property of TNA Wrestling or Impact Wrestling or whatever they want to call themselves, and they're doing fine. But this offers a world of possibilities. WWE is primarily interested in the tape library, as a lot of their current talent is former Ring of Honor stars. However, there are a few contracts on the Ring of Honor roster that I am sure they would love to get their hands on. The Young Bucks being one of them, who signed a 2-year deal back in December. Same thing with Jay Lethal and a few other talents. Christopher Daniels may be somebody who's on the radar for 205 Live to make that a real a strong promotion. And the initial conversation was that they would take the tape library and do away with the Ring product, but now a report came out tonight that there was a rumor that what they may want to do is continue the Ring of Honor show as a location, a destination television product for the more developed stars that right now are performing in NXT, and then keep NXT as truly a developmental system. That way you don't have to take your stars and rush them to television faster than they have to be. You could still do a sporadic NXT appearance show here and there. Obviously, they're already touring. You could do like these NXT takeover events here and there, but you wouldn't have to do a weekly television program for NXT if you were doing one with Ring of Honor with the more established stars. So this is a situation that offers a lot of opportunity and a lot of excitement, and something we're all going to want to keep our eyes on to see how these things progress. Rumor is they're going to meet at least one more time before WrestleMania. Who knows what the outcome of that's going to be. On the Sam Roberts podcast, Shawn Michaels had this to say about WWE presenting him with a match opportunity at this year's WrestleMania. So this is a quote from that Sam Roberts podcast where he said, "I guess I'm breaking something with you, and I don't even know if I should, but look, I could have had that match. They didn't have an opponent for AJ at Mania. It was just something, hey, we don't have anybody to work with him, and everybody would like to see you guys. Are you interested?" And I said, look, I wish that young man was here 10 years ago, man. I honestly do. I think he's very talented, but I think him and Shane will have a pretty decent match. It sounds to me like Triple H where Vince McMahon or somebody was actually responsive to what the fans wanted and tried to make this dream match happen. I'm actually a little disappointed in Shawn Michaels for not taking the match, because that was one of those matches that potentially is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I get it. Shawn Michaels is 51 now. He hasn't wrestled in 7 years. He's been out of the business for a while. But look, last year at WrestleMania, we all blew up when he walked out at WrestleMania when the League of Nations were in the ring. He didn't look like he missed a beat. He came right out, took off his shirt. He's in his wrestling gear. He got in that ring, laid the smackdown. It was perfect and flawless. Now, I understand that's a small sample size to try to determine whether or not he'd be able to pull off a full match. But Shawn Michaels has always been the anomaly. He's the guy who goes against conventional wisdom, and I believe firmly that his type of commitment to the sport would have been able to pull something off that would have been very special. It's really a shame we're not going to get to see that this year. Maybe we get to see that sometime in the future. Impact Wrestling star Alberto El Patron is pulling out of WrestleCon this year. He released a statement online indicating that he wants to spend time with his fiancée Paige. This is all to help her dealing with all this issues that have popped up courtesy of her tape being released and her private photographs. You know, you gotta give him a lot of kudos for supporting his lady in what has to be an extraordinarily troubling time. And, you know, a lot of times you don't see this in professional wrestling. You don't see these celebrity pro wrestler relationships last very long. This shows that he really is supporting her, and hopefully they can find a way through this time. As you guys have heard me say on this podcast, the whole thing is absolutely horrible if you ask me, and I wish the two of them nothing but the best going forward. Former TNA star Wes Briscoe, the son of Gerald Briscoe, is at the WWE Performance Center for a tryout. He's trying to get back into the company. He was in the company in like 2009 to like 2011, back when they still had Florida Championship Wrestling, but that's long since gone. NXT is the focus now. And Wes Briscoe, when he was in TNA, he was in Aces and Eights. He actually did relatively well. I actually thought he was relatively underappreciated. Now, I've seen him in other corporations since. He was in Paragon Pro Wrestling for a while, won their championship. He floats around the indies, but for him to have an opportunity to go work out at the Performance Center, hopefully he could do something to really make an impression on them. Io Shirai from the Stardom promotion, which is a women's wrestling promotion overseas in the Orient, is being looked at the Performance Center as well. They're looking for her to bolster the women's division a little bit with all the success of Asuka and how popular she's gotten. This is an opportunity to bring another one of those stars from, faraway land that most people here are not familiar with, that you could bring them to television, see what kind of unique presentation she could bring to the product. And it makes it for a great opportunity, if Asuka gets brought up to the main roster, to have someone who could fill that void that she may leave behind. Ring of Honor has announced their Supercard of Honor 11 match lineup. So if you don't know who's going to be at the show, you're going to see the Ring of Honor champion Christopher Daniels defend his championship against Dalton Castle. The Ring of Honor Tag Team Championship will be contested in a ladder match. The Hardys, if you ask me, the Broken Hardys, will be taking on the Young Bucks in a return match from when the Young Bucks lost the championship to them earlier. The Ring of Honor Television Championship match will be Marty Scurll defending his championship against Adam Cole. Texas Bull Rope match, Cody Rhodes is going to take on Jay Lethal. I'm actually looking forward to that. That's going to be a pretty cool match. Such a throwback to Cody's father, Dusty. What an awesome opportunity. The Briscoes and Bully Ray are going to be in the ring with the Gorillas of Destiny and Hangman Page. This will be a cool opportunity to see some New Japan talent and Ring of Honor talent collide at Ring of Honor's biggest show of the year. We're going to get to see Will Ospreay and Volador Jr. take on Dragon Lee and Jay White. Kazarian's going to go up against Punishment Martinez, and Matt Taven and Vonnie Marseglia are going to take on Beer City Bruiser and Silas Young. So, stacked card top to bottom. Look forward to seeing that, and we'll see how Ring of Honor does coming out of all these talks about a potential buyout. Christopher Daniels was actually available today for comment, and he has made it clear he has heard nothing of the case, nothing of the sort, and he's not concerned. He's the champion. He's looking at it as, I'm getting ready for the next show and the next show and the next show. He's just going to go roll with the punches and do what he's supposed to do. So, hopefully someone like Christopher Daniels, who's waited this long to be Ring of Honor champion, will not have to concern himself with these rumors and things floating around out there. He's just going to get an opportunity to be the best world champion he can be. And I really hope they don't take the championship off him already at Supercard of Honor 11. Not that Dalton Castle doesn't have all the resume necessary to be world champion. I think he does, but just because Christopher Daniels has waited this long, I hope he hangs on to that belt for just a little while longer. Former WCW, WWE, Ring of Honor, TNA, and ECW standout Jerry Lynn is at the WWE Performance Center this week as a guest trainer. It's going to be very interesting to see what his impact is there. I'm sure, obviously, they can't just keep hiring every guest trainer that comes in, but Jerry Lynn has a relatively unique resume. He's wrestled for virtually everyone around the world. He has a plethora of knowledge that would be helpful for any of their young talents, but with the advent of the 205 Live programming, the branding, and how much they've integrated the United Kingdom talent, they really need somebody who's a cruiserweight style wrestler to really give another injection of life into some of their smaller talents, because they could be phenomenal on one of those programs. Triple H is out with comments on the NXT TakeOver conference call today, and one of the things, he talked about all kinds of things in the conference call, but he included the discussion about Kyle O'Reilly, the former Ring of Honor product, and he talked about his potential for a spot in WWE. Triple H had this to say: "Kyle is an amazingly talented kid. I have no doubt that he will end up in WWE at some point, and time will show the whole world what he's capable of. I think it just comes down to where he's at and his availability, and where we're at with our availability to work with him. I hope those two worlds collide very soon, because I'd love to have him. He's a very talented kid." What an endorsement from one of the head-ups of WWE. Triple H, when he gives you that kind of compliment, you know that would be somebody that they would push into a premium spot. And, you know, Kyle O'Reilly deserves it for everything that he's been through. He's really does have the resume to be an amazing talent for WWE, no matter what program they put him on. The Wrestling Observer has hinted that Mick Foley could in some way come into WrestleMania to interfere in the Seth Rollins versus Triple H match at Mania. I'd be okay with that, but at the end of the day, the reality is that Seth Rollins really needs to go over clean here. This feud has built for so long. It's been so well done. The fans have really been waiting for this. This kind of gives you the feel, the throwback to Roddy Piper's claim that, like, he would never wrestle. He'd irritate the fans and make them wait and make them wait and make them wait, and then they'd be so willing to pay to see him get his butt kicked. That's kind of where we're at with this Rollins Triple H situation. You know, Triple H has been egging this on for the better part of a year and a half to 2 years, and now we're finally at that apex of this feud. And I think Seth Rollins really needs to win this match clean. Now, Foley could still come out and keep Stephanie from getting involved, and that would be fine with me. But I really hope he doesn't get involved in any physical way, which with his hip situation, I would be surprised if he was. Moving on to more WWE news, Bray Wyatt was out and had a conversation, one of his interviews, where he spoke about his real-life brother, Bo Dallas. And he talked about wanting to form an alliance with his brother at some point down the line. He said, here's a quote from Bray: "Bo Dallas is quite possibly the most talented wrestler on either roster. He's the most underrated superstar of all time, in my opinion. He has so much to give. At some point, I would love to form an alliance with him, because I know who and what he really is. Whether people want to look at him like that, well, then I'll show you. It's very, very possible." Interesting comments coming from Bray Wyatt. If you don't know, the two of them are brothers. Their father is Erwin R. Shyster, IRS, also known as Mike Rotunda, and their uncle is Barry Windham. Their grandfather was Blackjack Mulligan. This is a rich family of wrestling talent, and it would be really cool to see the brothers get an opportunity to work together on the main roster. Who could be the mystery challengers for SmackDown's Women's Championship at WrestleMania? This has been speculated on for weeks now, and right now there's some leading candidates to potentially make a return at Mania. Lita is probably the biggest name of the people left. There are others. They're talking about Tamina, who's been out for a long, long time, but she's been wrestling on house shows. We know that Kelly was backstage at Raw at one point, and she was rumored to be coming in. Victoria was potentially coming in. Maria Kanellis, now that she's left TNA, her and her husband left TNA, there's a possibility they could bring her in. Summer Rae, who's been out rehabbing for a very long time. Eva Marie, who, talk about a flop, like, she just cannot seem to make it to television and stay there. She's been out and doing all kinds of photo shoots and every other thing in the world. It's a possibility they bring her in. They already announced that Naomi announced through Facebook. Her father confirmed that she should be back for Mania, so there's a lot of people they could roll into this. I'm actually hoping that Lita is one of them, just to give that nostalgic feel to WrestleMania. I don't expect Lita to win the match, of course. I actually expect if they bring all those people back, I would expect somebody like Tamina to win. And there's still the possibility that Asuka could appear and show up on the show, so we'll have to see how that works out. Pro Wrestling Sheeps claims that the reason for the SmackDown Tag Team Championship change, and this is big news, may be for a much bigger purpose. The end goal may be for the Usos to issue an open challenge at WrestleMania to be answered by none other than the Hardys, who may walk out of Mania as the SmackDown Tag Team Champions. I know it seems far-fetched, I know it seems like a stretch, but at the end of the day, that makes a lot of sense. They've been on this conquest for gold and this and that, and if they can find a way to maintain those broken characters in WWE, this would be the perfect time for them to debut unannounced at WrestleMania and kick off the next stage of their career in World Wrestling Entertainment. The Wrestling Observer is also reporting that Shinsuke Nakamura's main roster debut may be delayed as he's now been added to the NXT European Tour. Now look, when Sami Zayn came to the main roster, it was not a big deal. He still did some shows for NXT. Same thing has happened for Finn Balor. Several talents, Samoa Joe still went back here and there. So there is a chance that this has nothing to do with it. He may still make his main roster debut shortly after Mania, but you have to at least accept the possibility that he may be stuck in NXT a little longer, and I'm sure Triple H would love that because he really doesn't like that his roster has been raided, last year, and it's taken all this time to kind of build it back up a bit, and I'm sure he doesn't want to lose all this talent again this year, but the fans want what the fans want, and the fans want to see Shinsuke Nakamura on the main roster. In some related news to some of the other tidbits we've talked about earlier, the Wrestling Observer is also reporting that Maria Kanellis and Mike Bennett may be headed to WWE. When they left TNA, Mike Bennett, the day after his contract expired, won some Northeast Wrestling Championship. He has already lost that championship to Cody Rhodes, and people always wonder why that is. Why would you have a guy come in, get booked to win your championship, and then book him to lose your championship right away? It makes your championship look weak, unless he had to lose the championship because he was getting ready to go somewhere else. And that always makes people speculate that it could be WWE. I would love to see him in WWE. I think his character would do wonders for their brand. It would give them another mid to upper tier talent that they could really cultivate and develop. And the fact that he's got his real life wife there, you could already see him on SmackDown with Miz and Maurice. Now, after WrestleMania, when John Cena and Nikki Bella go away for a little while, this would be a nice lead-in for them to get into something with these two to take John Cena's place. I'm not saying that Mike Bennett is on John Cena's level in any way. Please don't take it to mean that. But it does create another opportunity. And it sounds like Maurice is very excited about teaming with her husband. So that might be an interesting sidebar, interesting feud for them to cultivate in the future. The indie intros for this episode: 3 promotions for diehard fans to seek out new wrestling action in Japan. JPW Joshi Porosu. And if you go to YouTube, look up Aja Kong versus Dynamite Kansai. If you look this up, this is a predominantly female wrestling promotion. They put together some killer shows and they cross-promote with All Japan Pro Wrestling. And when you watch this match, Aja Kong is one of the legends of women's wrestling in Japan. Very cool match. High production value, on par with New Japan Pro Wrestling. So check that out. In Australia, Riot City Wrestling. And if you go to YouTube, pull up Strength Cup Final, and then there's a colon and it says Strength 2015. And this is their final match in a tournament they held back in 2015. But again, very cool promotion. Not quite on par with Ring of Honor production value, but still an entertaining product. Solid wrestling. A lot of intergender matches and things like that happen there. But this particular match is just the end of their Strength Cup Final. And then Maximum Pro Wrestling. Now, I'm putting this in here for a very specific reason. I want you to go to YouTube, look up MPW Charity Show, Nikki Starr versus Ragnar. Wow. Just wow. I've never watched a pro wrestling match and felt the way I felt watching this match. Absolutely mind-boggling. This looks like they took one camera and hung it from a security camera post and recorded a match where the edges of the screen are distorted, and these guys are in a room where the ring is so high off the ground that they can't go to the top rope and perform any moves because they'll bust their head on the arch that's over the top of the ring. You can see they try to hit high spots anyways, but high spots aren't really high spots when they're coming off the bottom rope. You can see how these guys, clearly they're not WWE style talents. They're still very young in their careers. And in the background, there's not even rows of chairs. There's sofas everywhere. And there's people lounging around. You see a couple kids running around wrestling with each other on the side. And there's people over at a concession stand. A lot of people aren't even paying attention to the match itself, except for some of the guys in the back. But it's funny to see a totally different style of production. I'm not telling you you're going to watch this and be like, oh my God, I'm a diehard fan for this company. What I'm telling you is, if you love pro wrestling the way I do, I found this to be so entertaining because it was so much lower on the production value. Check it out. Maximum Pro Wrestling, MPW Charity Show, Nikki Starr versus Ragnar, and just see what you think. I have no more words. It's just bizarre. This day in pro wrestling history, 33 years ago, very bizarre situation. Ric Flair is in New Zealand. He wrestles Harley Race and wins the NWA Championship. Now, to put that in historical perspective, 3 days earlier, he lost to Harley Race, also in New Zealand. And the NWA nor WWE recognizes these two title changes. This is why there's so much of an issue when people say Ric Flair is a 16-time world champion. These title changes here, Harley Race should be a 9-time NWA champion. Ric Flair should have had one more championship added to his reign just from this switcheroo here. But back in the day, there was a lot of times where they would switch the title for a day and switch it back, and then they just wouldn't count it. Well, what about all the people who were standing in the arena that night and watched the new champion be crowned? You're going to tell them that what they saw didn't actually happen? It's ridiculous. That's the way booking was back in the 80s. It happened again to a guy in Puerto Rico. It happened, multiple times in Japan with different title changes. Inoki won the championship at one point and they didn't recognize it in WWE. So this is just the way booking was back then, but this is one of those championship wins that it's just not recognized by anybody. 20 years ago, WWE presented WrestleMania 13, bringing the lowest WrestleMania buy rate in history at only 237,000 viewers on pay-per-view and less than 19,000 people in attendance. You know how they always brag about their huge attendance numbers? Not at WrestleMania 13. And this is the one where they had The Undertaker defeat Psycho Sid for the WWE Championship. But more importantly, this is one of the most historic WrestleManias in the history of World Wrestling Entertainment, because this is where they pulled the double switch. Bret Hart defeats Stone Cold Steve Austin by putting him in the sharpshooter and him refusing to give up and passing out in the sharpshooter with the blood streaming down his face, and Ken Shamrock is the special referee, and that was the lowest rated WrestleMania in history. 16 years ago, monumental event. WWE purchases WCW. Unbelievable. Never thought I'd see it happen in my lifetime. And for those of us who lived through that experience, it was just such an exciting time. For a while there, we thought Eric Bischoff was going to buy the company. Then it switched and his deal fell through and WWE swooped in, and the numbers are out there, and I did not look them up for this podcast, but somewhere in the neighborhood of $6 million to purchase WCW. And the talent contracts were licensed to AOL Time Warner, not to WCW. So you could have bought the company for $6 million with the entire tape library, a couple rings, production equipment, and things like that for $6 million. It was custom packaged, just like getting like a pro wrestling promotion in a box for $6 million. I know $6 million may sound like a lot of money to a lot of people. When you come to a major production company, that's really chump change. So the problem is they didn't have a network to air their product on. But with the level of talent that they had, they could have secured a program, especially with their successes that they had seen in recent times. So it's kind of a shame that it went away, but we wouldn't see WWE in the form that it is right now had they not done that. In a positive note for the day, happy birthday to Hiroshi Tenzan. Tenzan is a killer Japanese talent. He's made appearances in WCW. He's held multiple championships, IWGP champion multiple times. Happy birthday to Tenzan. And we, celebrate many, many more. He still comes into the ring and competes at 46 and looks just like he did 20 years ago. So congrats go out to him. Today's look back match. This is a cool one for a completely bizarre reason. I was not looking for this when I was looking for your match today. I want you to go to YouTube and I want you to look up Maple Leaf Wrestling Buddy Heartthrob Hart versus Goldie Rogers. And what you will find out is Buddy Heartthrob Hart is Bret the Hitman Hart long before he's the Hitman. This match is from the early 80s. This is when they were calling him Buddy Hart, the Heartthrob. And check that match out. You can actually see some of the flashes of his brilliance even that far back. So check that match out. Very funny stuff to see him with a totally different name, different moniker. And just give me feedback when you guys give comments on this episode so I know if you like that match, because it's pretty funny. Our fantasy booking time. Somebody asked me, what was the criteria for people being included in this tournament? Well, it was world champions. You had to have been world champion in a major promotion. Well, then somebody sent me an email, the same person actually, sent me an email and said, well, how do you determine which ones are major promotions, which ones aren't? So here's the thing. I counted WWE, Ring of Honor, TNA, Lucha Underground, New Japan Pro Wrestling, WCW, ECW. Like, I tried to include as much as I could. I even did a little bit of World Wrestling Council because I added Carlos Colon as later in the tournament, and things like that. So anybody who is a world champion. And it occurred to me that I've been saying we've got this 64-man tournament. That's actually nonsense. There's actually 128 men. There's 64 matches in the first round of the tournament. So I know this is taking a little while, but it's kind of cool to see some of your votes. And I'm not telling you who won each match because I'm waiting to see. We'll get through the first round, and then we'll give you your next round matches. You guys can see what you guys chose, and it's very interesting. We're up to match number 31 and 32. And I love both of these. These are two monstrously important matches to me. The Undertaker versus AJ Styles, and Batista versus the Ultimate Warrior. In the YouTube comment section, put down who you think would win those matches so I could tabulate your results and get your people moved on to the next round. We don't have a YouTube fan poll today because I really want to get people focused on the tournament. I have not been getting as much participation in the tournament as I was hoping for, but hopefully we'll get more people to comment today. I would love to hear your input, what you could do, even if you want to use the old fan poll from the last episode, which two people would you put together to bolster the SmackDown Tag Team roster? Go for it. Give me some of that for this episode. I'm cool with that. Don't forget about the Fro-Life Planning Contest. For those who don't know what Fro-Life Planning is, we help students and adult learners find their path to higher education or a new career. Every month we give away one free 30-minute one-on-one phone consultation to aid in the planning of the path to your next step. No purchases necessary. Just open up your iTunes app in your computer, go to the Fro Wrestling Podcast iTunes page, click subscribe, give us a review, and click submit. When you do that, pop over to our website at www.frolifeplanning.com/contest, and you'll be entered for a chance to have one of those one-on-one phone consultations to aid in your planning of higher education or your next step in your career. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us in episode 52. We're going to go over everything that happens in the world of pro wrestling. Special thanks, as always, go out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing all the music and sound effects we use throughout today's show. Today's podcast, as always, is sponsored by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this new game from Beazle Games by going to www.thegamecrafter.com/sketchypeople to pick up your copy today. And AlleyRepair.com. Contact Alley Repair today for servicing of all your classic skee-ball, pinball, and arcade game needs. We want to thank you for listening to today's podcast, and we encourage you to go to our website at www.frolifeplanning.com to learn more about what Mr. Fro can do for you on your path to higher education. Remember, Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro, and I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today, as always. And if you're looking for more wrestling news and rumors, go to www.tsjsports.com/WWE for my latest articles on the world of pro wrestling. Until next episode, take care, everybody, and be safe.